to the RunnerX podcast, where we talk about all things running. As many runners know, it's 90% mental. So join Coach Valerie and Coach Caroline as we go through the mental side of running. Welcome back to the RunnerX podcast. Valerie and I are batching some podcasts today outside on I think it's like 80 degrees, but we're in the shade, so it's so nice right now. Right. This is probably the nicest it's going to be all day. I think we're getting up to 100 this weekend or next. But Valerie, I wanted to talk about something we were talking about last week, which is we see a lot of people both through our social media and through our membership that come in and say, okay, my plan said I had to run, 10 miles. So check, I got my 10 miles in, right? They're very much, well, my plan said I had to do A, B, and C today. So I did A, B, and I was really tired, but I got C done. Look, that whole almost like applaud me for grinding it out, right? For pushing through and for checking the boxes because I did what the plan said I was supposed to do. Let's talk about that mindset and how that's really not good for you.
Right. So that's a great thing, and by the way, we see it all the time, right? Like the accolades in running are from how far you went. Mm-hmm. Really, people want to know how many miles you run. So I think we all got kind of caught up in that trap, and then you have to think to yourself, running is a freedom. Like when you're actually running and you run really and you feel good. It's freedom, like you're free falling, you're connecting, it should feel really good. So I always tell people, if you're out there and you're like, man, I just want to keep going because it feels so good, then keep going. But what if you're out there and something starts to not feel good? Like my knee's hurting, my hips hurting, whatever, something's not feeling well, and you're like, well, but my plan says I have to do 10 miles. Then who are you really talking to or connecting with? Are you connecting with your own body? Or are you connecting with some random plan?
Right.
You see what I mean? So we really talk about that a lot, that running is also the biggest connection you have between your body and your mind. And that connection is going to grow and strengthen. And so if your body's saying to you, hey, today is not the day for 10 miles, let's just take a break, listen.
Yeah.
And without judgment.
Right.
And, we start the training for everybody with what's called the immersion, because we want you to immerse yourself in the correct movement. And we ask you to actually not run.
Oh yeah.
The panic sets in. I have to get my miles in, Valerie. And I say, okay, but I would like you to get your miles in correctly, because then the miles become really that much more fun.
Well, and let's talk about that, because there have been a couple of times where it's like, and I am probably one of the worst people to do this because I just think it's funny. I'm one of those people that is like, I hate running, I love running, I hate running, I love running, right? So I'm the one that posts all the memes about hating running. But honestly, truly, if you were to say, well, then why do you run? I'd be like, oh no, I'm kidding. I really do. I like to run. I get joy, I get therapy, whatever, clear head, whatever reasoning it is for why I'm running. But let's talk about that. Some people are like, no, I hate running, but I need to lose weight. I need to drop 30 pounds, or I need to qualify for some sort of job that I'm doing. So what do you think I should do if I truly I'm not running for the joy of running, I'm running to lose weight?
Well, even more so, it's important to understand the movement of running.
Right.
So that's really important. And I honestly think that everyone wants to like it because it's fun. And you can see when you see other people running, there's some reason they're out there running, right? So for a lot of people, when they start running and it doesn't feel as good as it looks, they, instead of questioning it, they just, like you said, they're like, I'm just going to grind it out. Because the answer that a lot of people get is just keep running, and at some point,
it'll get better.
Yeah.
The shin splints will pass.
Yeah. So that's what's so crazy, guys. It's like if you take the time to learn the movement of running and you start to connect with the movement, meaning like for us, there's a gait in the gait cycle. There's actually only one action of running, and that's pulling. But in order to be able to pull well, you develop muscle elasticity, and it's kind of like going back to being a kid. We help you get those springs back.
Right.
The reason that running is hard, especially if you're overweight or out of shape, either of those things, is because you don't know how to do it, right? So you're using like all kinds of extra muscles or actions that just maybe make sense to you, but they're unnecessary. Like I have people in the membership that are putting in, like their mile is like a 12 or 13 minute because they're using the wrong work. Like they're working so hard, their effort is so hard, and they say to me, I'm so trying, and I'm like, I know, we just need you to move differently. And then all of a sudden they start to move differently, and guess what, you start to want to move more. But you've got to give yourself, it's the same thing, you've got to say to yourself, I'm learning something new, and when I'm going to learn something new, I'm going to be okay with being not good at it.
Well, and let's talk about that, because Biggest Loser was big. It's not big anymore, but it used to be so intense, and of course they'd run their marathons and stuff like that, and so it became this big thing that, and if I want to lose weight, I need to get out and run more miles. But that's not true, is it? No. It's actually, when you're doing, the reason why you drop the weight so quickly, especially when you first start running, is because you aren't running a lot of miles. It's because you're doing shorter, quicker distances, and you're working on your cardio. You're basically doing like a high intensity training, right?
Right.
So, so if my reasoning for running or learning to run correctly is to drop some weight, I'm better off coming into the membership, doing the immersion, and staying in the immersion. Not even really getting out and putting a marathon on my plan.
And I like to tell people this. When I first started learning to run, I had, my fitness was fine. I was a fitness instructor, right? I mean, I've been fit, quote, fit. So this is just kind of a funny story, but when I first met my running coach, Dr. Romanov, who's the founder of Pose Method, my running pace was about an 8:30. 5K to marathon. It didn't really matter. That was my run.
Yeah, you just dialed it in.
So he said to me, oh, do you have asthma? And I said, no, I don't have asthma. And he said, oh, well, something's wrong with you. Like, do you have some kind of, and by the way, he's Russian, so it's direct translation. His point was, why do you stay the same in your run, even at different distances? And I said, I don't know. That's my running pace. And so he said, well, because you're not running. And what he showed me was I was literally spending like over a minute per mile on the ground because I was reaching, because I was pushing, just from doing the wrong movements.
Right.
So he's like, you're exerting, but you see, it's not helping you like calorie-wise or energy-wise, because when you're pushing and reaching, you're stressing the joints.
Yeah.
So he's like, you're spending a minute a mile with impact on your knees. So think about that. If I'm running a marathon, right, all of a sudden these minutes a mile, or all of a sudden you're at, all your training, everything. So I show people, some people are spending 2 minutes a mile on the ground. So that's not pleasant for your body. It's unpleasant.
Well, and that's why you say I hate running.
Yeah. Or my body sure hates it. So he said to me, you're not running. You're not running, Valerie. You're just pounding the pavement. You're literally hitting the ground. So he said, you're not going to run for 3 months. You're just going to do immersion. He didn't call it immersion. I'm just using that word. And I had a marathon in 3 months. And I was like, are you out of your mind? I got to get my 20.
Yeah.
I got to get my 20 miles in for my marathon. And he said, no, you don't, because you're just going to be spending all of those. You're going to be spending hours on the ground. Does that make sense to you guys?
Yeah.
Of impact. Every extra frame on the ground is 3 times your body weight plus 5 seconds of ground time. So just to keep that in mind. So I did what he said. I listened to the man, and I went out to a track, or I would just find a small road, and I did my drills, what I give the same people today. And I ran that marathon and never hit the wall. It was my first marathon to not hit the wall.
Wow.
And I tell people, I was still out there for an hour, what I needed to be, or whatever my time was, but I was just rotating, drill a little, run a little, stop and think. How did that feel? See what I mean?
Yeah.
And then I would drill a little and run a little bit. And when I would run, if I wouldn't feel what I was trying to feel, I would just stop for a second and I'd reset. And guys, I've used that training model now since 2004 and have run marathons, ultras, but who cares about Valerie? How many other people I've taken to Boston, to their marathon, to their first 100-miler, to wherever they wanted to be, simply by believing in themselves that if they worked on themselves and their movement, then running becomes you want what you want. Like, I want to go out and run this distance. Now I know I can because I know how to run.
Right. And let's finish with that, because that was one of the things that kind of brought this up to us, was this idea that we want you to come through the membership, whether you stay for a quarter or 2 quarters or a year, or even sign up for lifetime. We do have a couple lifetime members that just love everything about you and are like, I don't want to ever leave.
Well, they like this is what they like. They like that when the accountability.
Yeah.
They can check in. They can send me a video. Like they can send me an update. Who else is going to talk to you about? I finally felt the fall.
Right.
Or my cadence. If you put out on Strava or Garmin or whatever, my cadence today was this. You're going to get 1,000 people telling you why cadence isn't important.
Right. Well, and that was the point. Is those are the people, and this is what we hope for everybody, are the ones that come back and say, I felt joyous in my run.
Right.
I felt light in my run. They don't come back and say, it's amazing. You can tell when they've made the shift because they no longer come on and take a picture of themselves and say, I ran 20 miles or I had a grueling, 15 whatever. They come back and say, it was challenging, but I checked in and I made it through and I feel good, or I feel, they talk about their feelings, right? Isn't that what you want?
My pulse felt lighter. My feet felt lighter.
My
I could
my
feel
run
the
felt
falling.
something.
Yes,
It's not
yes.
my run was
Yes.
a mileage.
It's not. You're not just giving us the data off your
Yeah,
watch. You're
yeah.
giving us the data from your heart.
Yes, that's how we should end this. So our goal for you when you go out and run, and if you decide to join us, is that we want to teach you how to get the data from your heart.
Yeah.
We should do a t-shirt.
Thank you for joining us on the RunRx podcast. If you'd like to know more, join us at www.runrx.fit. And if you have additional questions that you'd like answered on the podcast, email us at support@runrx.fit.